Well, good morning, and thank you for joining the WBC Richmond's WOW radio broadcast. I am your host, DrDanni, and I'm excited that we have a phenomenal woman in business that I've known for some time today to join us. The Women's Business Center Richmond is located on the historic campus of Virginia Union University. We are going into 2022 preparing for our first or our inaugural women's conference. Is called Winning with Women Entrepreneurs, and it's going to take place April the 27th and 28th of 2022 at the Greater Richmond Convention Center. So you'll get more information about that, but definitely you can look us up on our socials at the WBC Richmond or on the web link thewbcrichmond.org. So we are going to be talking with Dr. Tanya Dugat-Wickliff. Welcome, Dr. Tanya.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm very excited about the opportunity to share with you this segment that we have in WBC's WOW radio broadcast is entitled Bossing Up. We get an opportunity to talk to women entrepreneurs who have a bit of, a little seasoning on you, where you have an opportunity to help people who are beginning their process, maybe in the middle of their process of being an entrepreneur. They're aspiring, they're existing, they are established. And sometimes it takes a little bit more encouragement, or maybe there's some how-tos. So we want to learn a little bit more about your business. And could you first start by talking a little bit about what's the name of your company, what industry you serve, and then I want to learn a little bit more about you. I want our listeners and our viewers to learn a little bit more about you. But before we get started, there's always one thing I want to know, and I want our viewers to know. If they only have a few moments to take in what nuggets you're going to be dropping today, what would you want them to walk away with?
Thanks so much for asking. Great question. I would want your listeners to walk away with a nugget that persistence pays off. Don't quit, no matter what. Whatever dream you have, you've hid it away somewhere, go dust it off. It's a new year. It's time to aspire to new heights and to be encouraged that you are uniquely equipped with everything, everything that you need to be successful. Everything. And so these nuggets that you get, the extras, they're just helping you to smooth out the rough edges, if you will, because I just personally believe that God divinely entrusts us with the skills and the talents to accomplish phenomenal things, no matter who you are. So think about it, go dust off that dream that you've hidden away, bring it forth, polish it, get you some feedback, some nice nuggets from the WOW broadcast, and get busy. Be persistent. Stay in motion.
It's interesting that you say that, and thank you for driving that home, how important it is to have some stick to itness. But kind of sort of the way you put it is like, oh, well, these are just small things. I mean, I'm sure that you've ran into some serious roadblocks
Oh,
with
yes.
TANCOE, with other entrepreneurial efforts that you've engaged in. And this broadcast is really designed to understand what challenges real entrepreneurs experience, how they persevered, and is that any element of that transferable? So this idea of perseverance, I think, is real important. We've known that these times have been pretty rough for people who have been in business for many years.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you were talking to one of those individuals who have been in business, they have experienced some significant downturn in business during this COVID period, and they were thinking about giving it up and hanging up their hat. I know that we're not talking about a specific instance, but sometimes people who've been there. Maybe there's an example of something where you kind of hit a wall and or something, and maybe you can share some insight.
Oh, for sure. And I'll start at the beginning. The name of my company is TANCOE LLC. And TANCOE is a professional and construction services business. And right now, we've been focusing more on the construction side of the house. You know, that there are, tons of funds that are now flowing in infrastructure. And there's not a lot of women businesses. So the first thing was coming off the bat, figuring out how could I even enter an industry like this. I had some background in other entrepreneurial ventures growing up, and they kind of ebb and they flow. And this was the one thing that I kind of had held deep in my heart, because the why of while you do business is so important. Because otherwise, whether COVID or any other obstacle, you'll be tempted to just say it's not worth it and get a 9 to 5. And I strongly encourage, if you can do both while launching your business, it'll take a little bit of stress off. But I found out in my industry that they really valued certifications. And so I learned more about what that meant. So it was a very arduous task, a lot of paperwork. The city was very slow. It took about a year for me to complete all of the paperwork, the processing, the interview process, but I was able to emerge with a certification as a woman owned business, as a minority owned business, small business, and disadvantaged business. Then I got registered with our Texas Department of Transportation, with our TxDOT, which is a state entity. And so once you get the certifications, it really opened up the door, and I started to network with others so that I could become a prime. I would like to be a prime, but in the meantime, I was a sub of a prime. What that means is that there are those who get big contracts, and they're looking for certified businesses to help with the contract. And specifically, what we were doing was offering at first flaggers. So if you on the construction site, or you're driving down the road and it's irritating construction that we all encounter, but you see these people with these brightly colored vests and signs that say either stop or slow, those are
Shout
flaggers.
out to the flaggers that we need to always slow down before they even say anything so
Yes.
that we can be safe on the construction site.
Yes, please follow their instruction. They're there for your safety. And to be honest, it was also a ministry for me, because I started off thinking that this is a great opportunity for second chances, because some of our flaggers may have hit some bumps in the road. Real talk, they may have had felonies, had issues, and we didn't hold that against them. And so, because we were reaching out to launch a business opportunity that would give back, God has really started to bless us so that we now own the barrels and the signs and some of the other construction support that you see. But it's really been challenging. Quite honestly, it's a man's world when it comes to construction. And so there's always that dismissive prime who wants to either lowball the price because I'm a woman, or because I'm a woman of color, maybe dismiss me and my business altogether. And so I had to develop very tough skin, quite honestly, in the
Well, I
business.
know that you've had experience in doing that, right? Because I mean, you've been in corporate America, you were in the semiconductor industry, which there's a lot of male dominance, particularly on the
True.
engineering side of it. You spend some time in oil and gas, and that is definitely
Yes.
a good old boy environment. So what I hear you saying though is that you got to have on your big girl britches when you want to start doing business in certain spaces that are dominated, by our counterparts who may, again, some of it may be unintentional and
Yes.
unconscious or intentional, but you got to have thick skin.
Absolutely, absolutely. And me. We've definitely worked together. Been very fortunate to do very good business in the past, and look forward to other opportunities. If any, please let me know, and vice versa. But dating back to college, my undergrad degree is in mechanical engineering, and that is a male dominated degree. So I guess in some ways it's been my lot in life to kind of trod where not a lot of females have gone. And it gets old because you would think at some point you've proven yourself, but you can't be worried about that. You have to really like just keep being persistent. To me, that's
Well,
been my go-to word.
and so one of the things though that I can remember back to the earliest time before you even launched your business, or maybe I knew when it was in a different format and you were really focusing on tutoring and supporting students.
Correct.
But I remember you making the statement that you wanted to be a provider of jobs. And as we were just speaking, I thought about that because I know you have a lot of great growth ideas and strategies for your business because again, if you're in business, you're in it to make money, you're in it to grow, and you're in it to give back. But I want to say kudos to you for realizing a dream that I think sometimes you don't take credit to pat yourself on the back about. And that is from the first time that I ever remember you talking about TANCOE, your whole focus is that you wanted to be a provider of jobs. And if you don't mind me being transparent, it might have been at a point where you might not have been employed at the time that I remember you talking about that.
That is
So,
correct. Yes, yes. We've come a long way. God is so faithful. I can't help but be true to who I am, and He gets all of the credit, all the glory, all the honor, because it's been rough. I mean, um, a little bit about just my background to be transparent, and I definitely don't mind sharing. I started off as a teen mother, small country town. My I was in a household with only my mother, so single head of a household, only one parent. She had some disabilities from an industrial accident, which was very challenging. So therefore, she was on fixed income, and the odds of um, making it out of that environment, being so young as a teen mother, having my first son in high school, I know the odds were not good, but persistence, and but God. So those two combined have definitely brought me through, such that not only was I able to get a mechanical engineering degree, very challenging every step of the way. I was, hit on multiple sides, even a professor who told me that I should reconsider my career objectives because I wasn't engineering material. And so I used that irritation and anger that put in me to kind of fuel my path forward. And that's when I decided at that very moment I wasn't going to quit regardless of what other people's opinion. It taught me a valuable lesson that you and we're defined by what we say about ourselves, not by what other people say about ourselves. So never let anybody else tell you what you can and can't do. You're defined by what you're willing to persist to do. And
well,
so
that's
was able to make
when
advances.
you
Yeah.
say that, Dr. Tanya, I will tell you that that professor either moved around to a lot of universities or was cloned or had twins somewhere because that's comment I hear from other people
Unfortunately.
as they were pursuing whether it was an undergraduate or graduate degree. There seem to have been people out there trying to discourage, those of us of Black and brown hue from pursuing our advanced degrees or undergraduate degrees or engineering degrees for whatever reason. But again, a story of persistence and overcoming. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you became a I'm sorry, not disabled, a disadvantaged business designee, because that's something I think is more of a federal designation. It's very, very powerful. It opens up a lot of doors to do business with the federal government as well. But can you talk a little bit about that process? I know you mentioned that it's paperwork, but what else does it involve?
Um, from a holistic standpoint, I was able to get the small business, the minority, and the woman business designation a lot quicker.
Okay.
And I went through, I'm here in Houston. And so in the city of Houston, there's that process. But then after you've been in business for a bit, you can go back and file for disabled, but you additionally, it's more paperwork, but it's about making sure you have good systems. I'm really big on making sure that you have your processes, especially your financial documentation, in order, because they're going to ask you for records, they're going to ask you for receipts from previous contracts, primarily proving that you have been able to successfully uh, land contracts, even as a sub. So in my case, I hadn't been a prime, but even as a sub, I was able to successfully complete projects. And that was evident by the fact that I could produce pay stubs to show that I had been paid for an amount of work. So once again, it's the paperwork, it's an interview process, and now it's a deeper dive into the financials and the success metrics of your project. So it's not about having a lot of money, didn't have a ton of that, but I did have success metrics and I was showing a growth trajectory. Then I fit the classifications for disadvantaged businesses. So being a female, being a person of color, being a couple of the designees. That's also true if you're a veteran, things like that. And so when you put that all together and you are willing to work through the process and be a little bit patient because it does take time, then that's how I ended up with the DBE or disadvantaged business entity.
So you kind of mentioned a little bit about opportunities on the horizon, particularly about the, with the new infrastructure bill passing and things of that nature. So if you were to look back and see when you started on the construction side of the house and where you are now, I'm sure you've seen some multiple of growth over the last few years. What kind of growth in terms of expanding your business? You started out on the flagging side, and then I heard you say that now you own some of the equipment that you use for, you know, the barrels and all of that. And I know we spoke earlier today, and you talked about an opportunity that you're bidding on in another city to do some mowing and things like that. Can you maybe talk about how did you begin to go from one area to the other, and what kind of growth expansion do you think you're on maybe in the next 12 to 24 months?
That's a great question. In the next 12 to 24 months, I sincerely hope and expect to double our current revenue. And I say that based on, yes, not just the federal infrastructure bill that has recently passed, but dating back to, a few years back in the Houston area when Hurricane Harvey came through, there was, even for the city of Houston alone, a $96 billion infrastructure bill that had been passed. And so, knowing that those funds were in construction, I figured the industry is solid, the need is great, and so it'll be around a while. And what I didn't know that I did learn over time was just how much was included in infrastructure. So you alluded to a mowing job. We just traveled today 106 miles trekking out the potential route that we're bidding on. The bid is due tomorrow at noon, so that's what I'll be working on tonight. But it's mowing in the right of way and on the sides of the road. And who knew that that's part of infrastructure? So keeping it maintained. So there's a whole maintenance, tree trimming, fixing guardrails that break. And I never thought about who puts down those little reflector buttons in the middle of the highway that helps you to see at night because it catches your headlights. But there are bids that I've seen for those kinds of things, even the cleanup on the side of the road. And so we don't own heavy machinery, but we even own striping material so that we're able to do parking lot striping. We're expanding into other areas of Texas. And, as you and I have talked about, potentially expanding even into your area because the need is great. Now we do have the bill, and we fully expect to offer more jobs because that is something that's near and dear to my heart. I do want to be a provider of jobs, and not just a consumer. And I hope to grow that bandwidth of supplying and providing more opportunities for persons that are in need. The need is great.
Yeah, and it's interesting, which really drove our conversation today about being able to expand into the Virginia area. There is, and I love to name drop. So if there are entities or individuals that you want to shout out in terms of pouring into your ability to be successful at what you're doing, but there's a gentleman here, Mr. Fobbs. He does road signs. His business is one of the fastest growing businesses that I'm aware of in the
Oh,
space, where all of those signs that you see on the road, whether it's temporary construction or even permanent construction, directional signs, food signs, all of those things that you find on the highway, detour signs and things like that. His business is growing leaps and bounds, and I have talked to him about you, and he definitely wants to follow up, because he believes
excellent.
there's a way for you guys to partner and do some things. I want you to share a little bit about what it means to have a business that impacts communities, because you kind of alluded to it in terms of being able to help people get back on their feet, people who may have taken a wrong turn or something unfortunate may have happened in their lives that led them down a wrong road. And one of the things that we believe from a women's business center standpoint, from a focus on underserved communities, is that business can indeed make communities better. When I read and I look at some of the things that are going on in low socioeconomic communities, one of the biggest challenges that they have has to do with technology and transportation. But if jobs are in their area, if opportunities are in their area, then you see these areas begin to improve, and you actually see crime and stuff go down. But can you talk a little bit about your mindset on whether, the connection between the two and how that goes to making communities better?
Right. I totally believe that people want to feel good about their contribution to society. I don't think anybody wakes up and say, you know what, I just don't want to be a good human being. That's just not who we're programmed and hardwired to be, especially people of color, because we come from very strong, usually environments, or we have a lineage that points to very strong people, even when we may not have necessarily been allowed to or able or choose not to follow suit. And so, with that mindset, I'm not disillusional or delusional about the fact that I'm not passionate about business. I'm passionate about providing hope. So my brand is called Hope and it's intended to provide all communities something. It might not seem like much, and we didn't have a lot to give, but we made sure it was a little something just to say we appreciate you. And that person was so excited about what it was able to do, just that little bit extra. And then he further echoed that he's been with us for about 2 years now. And he said that was the longest he had ever had a legitimate job.
Wow.
I was like, wow, was exactly my
Yeah,
response.
that's life changing when you think about it, because it's something that starts the ball rolling, and then people start
Yes.
talking about telling other people, and then that grows. So kudos to you and Tanco for the good effort that, what's that statement? You can do well by doing good. That's what it sounds like you guys have been able to tap into.
Well, we really, really are trying. And we additionally want to congratulate because I know how you pour into women. And I thank you for even including me in your podcast because I know that I've seen you and your family deposit as well into people of all ages, of all creeds and colors, no respect of persons, and
Thank
you've really
you.
really blessed so many people, and that's what I believe has been such a strong bond between the two of us. because I do believe that our desire is to make a significant difference, no matter what arena we're in. And so I want to encourage your listeners that that's really what it's all about. We need to commit to make a difference, no matter how small you may think it is. But if the only thing you can give is a smile, give somebody a smile today. Give somebody a pleasant word today, a compliment today. It may make the difference in a person's life to the degree you may never, ever know.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So how do people find out more about, how do they, find out more about your business? If, let's say, some of our listeners or viewers have questions about, how do they get into the business of becoming a part of the Department of Transportation? In any regard, the process is not that different. Tell me a little bit about your contact or your link up points, your website and things of that nature.
Yes. Well, I strongly encourage reach out to me. I'm very personable. I want to hear from you directly. So my email address is drtanya02 at gmail.com. That's Dr. Tanya 02 at gmail.com. You are so welcome to reach out to me at any time. I will reply, and I will absolutely do my best to assist or point you in the direction of someone who can assist, because I
Outstanding.
really, really am committed to the success of my sisters and my brothers, universal.
Thank you for that. It's been a short time. Time always goes really fast when we
It
have,
does.
such outstanding people, spokespersons as yourself. But I, again, want to thank you for the time that you've taken to pour into our fellowship at the Women's Business Center of Richmond. Again, I want to let our listeners and viewers know that you can reach out to us. We are on the campus of Virginia Union in Pickford Hall, room 312. Our email address, if you're wanting to reach out to us directly, is wbc-richmond at theinstitutenc.org. An easier way to do that is just to give us a call at 804-525-9499. But definitely we are wanting to hear from you guys. We're wanting to do what we can to use the resources and the connections that we have to strengthen your entree or your existence in the entrepreneurial space. Thank you from the WBC Richmond WOW radio broadcast at ESPN Richmond 106.1 FM. Have a great day.